Hello all, welcome back to the YouTube channel. So as we were doing the videos on second PUC Biology, the first video was about the complete chapters, weightage and their marks. So the second video goes with the complete pattern of question paper. So this is the third video which I'm making to show you the model question paper which is released by the board, Karnataka board. So this is model question paper to understand the pattern of question paper, and they have also provided key answers to it, which will help in learning how to answer for specified marks. So here, as any question paper you see, there is a note given as general instruction. So the general instruction says this question paper consists of 4 parts. So they are talking about the question paper pattern. This is already been discussed in the second video. So the 4 parts are A, B, C, and D. And then on the D section, D part, there is 2 sections, section 1 and section 2. And all the parts are compulsory. So when you're talking about the parts, part A, B, and C, and D, there is no exception. So all the parts you have to attend. And then moving on to specifically writing the biology answers, draw diagrams wherever necessary. Unlabeled diagrams or illustrations do not attract any marks. This is very important to remember as student who is going to attend the biology examinations. So wherever necessary, sometimes in question paper, in the questions, they wouldn't have asked for diagrams, but the answer sometimes have the diagrams which you can refer in the textbooks or your given notes from your colleges. So those diagrams has to be drawn for those answers. This is because as a student, you would not know the scheme of valuation. So under scheme of valuation, that one teacher would know for a 5 marks answer, giving just a diagram of 3 marks will not justify. Sometimes you have to give explanations for 2 marks. Or sometimes they would ask for an explanation. So the supporting diagrams has to be given. So this scheme of valuation, it can't be explained to every student. So always remember, wherever necessary, wherever diagrams are needed, make sure you draw it to them. And unlabeled diagram, always the labeled one would fetch mark. So unlabeled diagram or illustrations do not attract any marks. So moving on to the part A, under this model paper 1, here you have 10 questions of 1 word, and in which you have to attend all the questions. So here all the 10 questions you have to answer. And apart from other subjects, there is no mandatory chapter-wise questions asked, because the first question is asked from the 3rd chapter, that is reproduction in organism. And moving on to the second question also is asked from the 3rd chapter, that is reproduction in organism. But the third question is asked from the last unit, that is the ecosystem. And moving on to name the pathogen that causes amoeboisis, this is asked from the 3rd unit, that is the human health and diseases. And then what is micropropagation, asked from the chapter biotechnology. What are flocks, asked from the sewage treatment concepts. And then moving on to the 7th question, mention significance of gel electrophoresis in rDNA technology. So this question is asked from, again, biotechnology. And then why the cells of malignant tumors are considered danger. So this question is asked from the cancer concept, that is from human health and disease. Then moving on to the 9th question, why Western Ghats are considered as one of the biodiversity hotspot. So this is again from the chapter biodiversity. Then moving on to the 10th question. So some animals, if unable to migrate, might avoid the stress of escaping inline? So this is asked from the evolution chapter. So there is mixture of questions from all the chapter. There is no mandatory that the number of questions should be asked from a series of chapter. It can be randomly asked. Moving on to part B, the second part. Here you will have 8 questions to, you will find 8 questions, but out of which you have to answer just 5 questions, and that too in 3 to 5 sentences. That's all. So 5 questions into 2 marks, so it will give you 10 marks. So moving on to the first question here in the second part. What is parthenogenesis? Name an animal showing this. So parthenogenesis comes under the second chapter. Difference between incomplete dominance and codominance. This comes from the 5th chapter. Darwin's finches represents one of the best examples for adaptive radiation comment. This comes from evolution chapter. Draw a neat label diagram of an antibody molecule. This comes from the 8th chapter. Then moving on to what happens if there is a continuous breeding in animal. Discuss the strategies to overcome the problem associated with continuous inbreeding. This is from the 9th chapter. Draw a neat label diagram of sparge tank bioreactor. This is concepts from the bioreactor part. That is the 10th chapter. Then write a note on co-extension. This is again the last unit, that is biodiversity. India is rich in genetic diversity, justify. So this is again from the last unit, that is diversity. Moving on to part C. Here again you have questions from 19 to 26. So that will be like 8 questions. So out of 8 questions, you have to answer 5. So same like the part B, here also you have 8 questions in which you have to answer any 5. So here you have to answer in 40 to 80 words each, and then each answer carries 3 marks. So totally you would get 15 marks. So the first question under part C is, name the following: asexual reproductive structure of hydra, vegetative propagules of agave, the plant that flowers once in 12 years. This is from the 2nd chapter. Difference between microsporangenesis and megasporangenesis. This is again from the 2nd chapter. Then moving on, by using Punnett square schematically represent the dihybrid cross experiment conducted by Mendel using seed color and seed shape of P as character. This comes in 5th chapter. Write a note on homologous organ. So this comes under evolution chapter. And then moving on to the 23rd question. Describe the effects of drug abuse. This comes in 8th chapter. Then write a note on downstream process. This comes in biotechnology application chapter. Then draw a simplified schematic representation of phosphorus cycle. This goes back again to the last unit, that is biodiversity. Define ecological succession. Mention the 2 types of succession in plants based on the nature and habitat. What is a pioneer species? This again goes back to the last unit. I'm always talking about the last unit, and I'm not specifically talking about the chapter because most of the concepts are related in the last unit. So I would not be talking about the chapter wise questions. I would just tell about the unit. Then moving on to part D, the first section. Here you have 6 questions, out of which 4 has to be answered, and then this is a little lengthier answer, so you have to cover up the answers in 200 to 250 words. So here the first question is, explain how some plants are adopted for achieving pollination through wind, how Vallisneria and seagrasses achieve pollination. This goes back to the 2nd chapter. Draw a neat label diagram of sectional view of seminiferous tubule. This goes to the 3rd chapter, that is human reproduction. What is infertility? How infertility is treated by ART. This goes to the 4th chapter. What are the salient features of double helix structure of DNA? This goes to the 6th chapter. Draw the schematic structure and explain the different region of a transcription unit. This goes again to the 6th chapter. Discuss the contribution of Sutton and Boveri by making comparison between the behavior of chromosomes. This goes again to the 6th chapter. So moving on to the second section. Here again you have 5 questions, out of which 3 has to be answered. And then going to the first question, explain the main steps involved in the breeding of a new genetic variant of crop plant. This goes to the genetic crop plants, that is the 9th chapter. Genetically modified plants can reduce the use of chemical pesticides, justify. This goes to the biotechnology chapter. Describe the role of microbes in biogas production, or mycorrhiza as biofertilizers, or name the fungus that produces cyclosporin A. This is a little mixed from the chapters. And then moving on to explain how Mediterranean orchids adapt to achieve pollination. This is from the 2nd chapter, but part B, if you see, this is from the last unit, that is ecosystem. So this is again a little mixture, but you find all these 3 questions answers in the last unit. The last question, describe the participation of people in the conservation of forest in India by taking bonsai community, indicate and Chipko movement as example. Add a note on joint forest management. This again goes back to the last unit, that is biodiversity, in which the last chapter, that is biodiversity issues. So this is the key answers for all these questions which I've already told. You can find the answers according to the questions. You can note it down, you can study, you can practice this. And all these PDF link, I will be giving it in the comment. So check the comment for the PDF, for the questions and the answers. You can also comment or you can also ask questions if you have doubts. If you have, just comment and give a review about this video. I hope this would help in getting more marks in your examination. This first column says the scheme of valuation. This is how a lecturer would evaluate the answers, or they would allot marks for the answers. And the second column, what you see is the page number from the textbook. So textbook page number is also given here to make studying or preparation for the exam a little simpler and easier for the students. So here you can download this PDF, which is given by the Karnataka board, that is the PU board. I can share you the link also through which you can get the PDF format, or I can share you the PDF itself in the comment section. If you're unable to open it, if you're not able to get the link or find the link or open the link, then please do comment or send your email ID or any social IDs so that I can forward the PDF, which is already downloaded. So this is where, as I've already told, the chapters of each questions, but you would find the scheme of valuations and you would find the page numbers from the textbook. So textbook is the NCERT textbook of biology, which is prescribed by pre-university. So that is the textbook which will give you all the answers, and those page numbers are given here. You can just verify it. So these are the answers for those discussed questions. Thank you all. Please do comment, share, and subscribe to the channel.